There's a room in the basement of Oregon State Hospital known today as the Room of Forgotten Souls. In 2004, hundreds of copper cans were discovered holding the remains of 3,600 mental patients who were cremated on site starting in 1917. Built in 1628, the Swedish warship Vasa was hailed as the greatest warship ever built, but infamously sank just 20 minutes into its maiden voyage, resulting in the deaths of at least 30 people. After it was salvaged in 1961, archaeologists found that the ship was horribly asymmetrical. Apparently, some of the builders had measured in Swedish feet, which was 12 inches, while others had measured in Amsterdam feet, which was 11 inches. The ship was knocked over by a mild gust of wind less than a mile into its voyage. When she was a child, Oprah Winfrey's family was so poor that she had to wear dresses made out of potato sacks to school. She was molested several times by her own family members and got pregnant by the age of 14 after running away from home. Oprah was apparently in so much shame at the time that she never even named her son, who was born prematurely and died shortly after birth. This video shows the brainwaves of a man experiencing an epileptic seizure. Seizures can have many different causes that result in a burst of uncontrolled electrical activity in the brain. Many times the patient loses consciousness, but otherwise they may experience strong tingling, anxiety, or deja vu. In 1997, the Cat in the Hat Thanksgiving Day Parade float careened out of control due to high winds, knocking a lamppost into the head of Kathleen Karana, putting her in a month-long coma. She sued Macy's and the city for $395 million and ended up settling for an undisclosed amount in 2001. Kathleen eventually purchased a nice New York City apartment with the settlement money, but just 5 years later, Yankees pitcher Corey Lidle crashed his plane into her building and the engine ended up in her bedroom. Luckily, the crash happened just minutes before Kathleen was due to arrive home, but Lidle and his flight instructor were both killed while 21 others in the building were injured. Adding to the weirdness of this story, the flight instructor's friend was also supposed to be on this flight but got stuck in traffic and told them to leave without him. So he managed to escape death until just 1 month later when he was killed in a separate plane crash. The photo on the right shows a Houston police officer reacting outside the home where Andrea Yates drowned her 5 children in 2001. She started by holding 3 of her boys underwater in her bathtub until they stopped struggling. She then drowned her 6-month-old Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Her last living child, Noah, soon walked in and asked what was wrong with Mary, then ran when he realized what was going on. But Yates quickly caught up to the 7-year-old and drowned him as well. Afterwards, she laid the lifeless bodies of her children together in her bed. She then called the police, repeatedly saying she needed an officer but refusing to say why. During the trial, the defense argued that Yates was severely mentally ill and not in control of her actions during the murders. She was in a deeply delusional state, believing she needed to murder her children to prevent them from going to hell. In 2006, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to a high-security mental hospital in Texas where she remains to this day. This is the face of a mass shooter, David Katz, showing no emotion as he plays in a Madden tournament against other pro gamers. Katz was an elite player known as Brett, who always had the same lifeless expression on his face whether he won or lost a game. During a professional Madden 19 tournament in Jacksonville, Florida, Katz refused to shake the hand of his opponent after losing to him and stormed out of the tournament. Shortly afterwards, he returned with 2 handguns and fired 12 rounds into the players and crowd. 2 people were killed and 10 others were wounded before Katz turned the gun on himself. This eerie photo shows the red dot from David's sight on the chest of 22-year-old victim Elijah Clayton, who made a last-minute decision to enter the tournament. It was later revealed that Katz had suffered from numerous mental illnesses and had been institutionalized several times throughout his life. EA Sports offered its most heartfelt sympathies and donated $1 million to the victims' families in lieu of the senseless tragedy. Rarest things in the world. Known for its medicinal benefits, scorpion venom is the most expensive liquid on the planet by far. Since it's very difficult to extract, just 1 gallon of the fluid can cost up to $39 million. This cat suffers from myostatin-related hypertrophy, a very rare condition that causes muscles to grow excessively large. The broken specter is a natural phenomenon that only grows under certain conditions. It happens when a person standing on high altitude sees a shadow casted on a cloud below. Steak. Two men led a team of 80 people to collect over 1 million golden orb spiders and milk them for their silk. The 5-year project resulted in the rarest textile in the world, a golden silk cape. There are only 20 stealth bombers in the world, but this one was caught mid-flight in a Google Maps photo. Talk about a photo bomber. In 1984, NYPD officer Robert Cunningham decided to tip his waitress with a lottery ticket instead of cash. He told her they could split the winnings if she helped him pick the numbers. Sure enough, Cunningham won the state jackpot of $6 million, and true to his word, gave the waitress half. In 1902, the Mount Pele eruption killed all 30,000 people in a village except for a criminal who was on death row. He was locked up deep underground in solitary confinement, which served as the perfect shelter from the blast. On New Year's Eve in 2011, a terrorist planned on blowing up Moscow's Red Square with a mobile phone bomb. But her plan failed miserably when she received a spam text wishing her a Happy New Year. This caused the bomb to detonate while she was still at the safe house, and she was the only person who died. Weird crime facts. When James Mack's ex-girlfriend Sarah filed a restraining order on him, he realized he had to do something extreme to win her back. So he got 37 plastic surgeries and a vocal cord operation to completely change his identity. But a few weeks after meeting her, he made a comment about when they first started dating, and she called police immediately to have him arrested. In Canada, it's illegal to pretend to practice witchcraft. However, it's perfectly legal to practice witchcraft. The worldwide sale of Coke earns more than Microsoft, McDonald's, and Kellogg's combined. In 1997, a Danish woman was arrested in New York City for leaving her baby outside in a stroller while she was dining in a restaurant. But since leaving her baby out is common practice in Denmark, she sued the city and was awarded $66,000. Weird psychology facts. Dissociative identity disorder, aka multiple personality disorder, is a mental disease that affects roughly 1% of the population. It happens when a person disassociates themselves from a past experience that's too traumatic for their conscious self to deal with. This can cause the brain to fracture into many different personalities with their own postures, gestures, and ways of talking. Some of these alters can be so extreme that someone can experience major biological changes with each personality. For example, one woman with this disorder has some personalities that are blind. Even with their eyes open, an EEG showed that there was no brain activity associated with sight when these blind personalities were active. In an even more extreme case, serial rapist Billy Milligan had at least 26 different personalities. He was famously acquitted in court due to the claim that 2 of his personalities committed the crimes without him being aware. A woman named Claire bought a card table for $25 at a yard sale because she thought it looked nice. 30 years later, she found out that it was one of only 6 tables in the world made by furniture makers John Seymour and Son. So she brought it to an auction and made $540,000. This turtle shell naturally has the word God written on it. April 15th has been a notoriously tragic day in our world's history. Lincoln's assassination, the sinking of the Titanic, the Hillsborough disaster, the Boston bombing, and the Notre Dame Cathedral fire all occurred on April 15th. Weird psychology facts. Psychologist Laszlo Polgar theorized that any child could become a genius in any field if they received enough early training. So as an experiment, he trained his daughters in chess from the age of 4, and all 3 went on to become chess prodigies. His youngest daughter, Judith, is still considered the greatest female chess player in history. A person with damage to the right brain hemisphere can develop a joke addiction, a compulsive need to constantly make jokes. A group of psychologists once studied 400 different movies to find the most realistic psychopath. They found that Javier Bardem's depiction of Anton Chigurh in the movie No Country for Old Men was the winner. Several famous psychopaths such as Hannibal Lecter and Norman Bates didn't even make the top 100. Weird crime fact. In Japan in 1968, a fake motorbike cop pulled over a bank vehicle carrying $10 million in cash and told the driver to run because it was rigged to blow. He then simply got in the car, drove it off, and has never been found to this day. In 2009, escaped robber Jeffrey Manchester built a secret hideout inside of a Toys R Us. He lived there for 6 months, playing with the toys, watching DVDs, and riding bicycles to pass the time. This is what a prison cell looks like in Norway, where the prison system focuses on rehabilitation rather than punishment. Texas got rid of last meal requests after a death row inmate ordered 2 country fried steaks, a triple cheeseburger, a beef and cheese omelet, a pound of barbecued meat, a loaf of bread, 3 fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, a pint of Bluebell ice cream, and a pint of peanut butter fudge. He then proceeded to eat none of it. Insane coincidences. New Jersey grandma Patricia DeMoro walked to a craps table with $100 at an Atlantic City casino. Over 4 hours later, she'd set the world record for craps rolls at 154, shattering the previous record of 112. Her winnings were not disclosed to the public, but the odds of accomplishing what she did are about 1 in 1.56 trillion. World War I was sparked by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914. In the car he was killed in, the license plate spelled out A111118, which was the exact date the armistice was signed to end the war. In 1915, a Mexican man named Wenceslao Moguel was sentenced to execution and shot 9 times by a firing squad. But he managed to survive every shot, including the coup de grace, a final shot to the head at point-blank range to ensure death. He lived for another 60 years, finally dying in 1976. Last week on 2/2/2022, NBA player Desmond Baines had the ultimate Groundhog Day stat line. He had 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls, and shot 22.2% from the floor. Even crazier, Desmond Baines wears number 22. In 2010, Mexican singer Sergio Vega publicly denied a news report that he had been murdered. 1 hour later, he was murdered. In 2015, a dying fisherman told his 2 buddies to use his ashes as bait mix. Soon after he died, they used his ashes to catch this 180-pound monster carp, one of the largest ever caught. While watching Stuart Little with his daughter in 2009, a Hungarian art historian spotted a famous long-lost painting that was used as a prop. Sleeping Lady with a Black Vase had been missing since 1928 until a Stuart Little set designer picked it up at an antique shop for $500. The historian contacted producers to alert them of its value, and the painting was later sold for more than $300K. After watching a documentary about an apartment that was once used as a torture chamber, Katrina McGaw realized that she was actually living in the same apartment. In the 1980s, a man with severe OCD shot himself in the head attempting to take his own life. But instead of killing him, the bullet destroyed the part of his brain that was responsible for his OCD, and he went on to become a straight-A college student 5 years later. Olivia Farnsworth is the only known case of chromosome 6 deletion in the world. She doesn't feel pain, hunger, or the need to sleep. She was once hit by a car and dragged nearly 100 feet, but said she felt nothing and emerged with only minor injuries. Filet mignon. The most expensive license plate in the world was bought by an Abu Dhabi businessman for a staggering $14 million. This makes the #1 plate more valuable than the most expensive car ever made. When Jimi Hendrix was 16, his mother died from a ruptured spleen at the young age of 33. But Jimi's father didn't allow him or his brother to attend the funeral. Instead, he gave them shots of whiskey and told them that this was how men should deal with a loss. After several hours of drinking on board a ferry, Englishwoman Emma Blackwell fell to her death. She'd apparently been imitating Kate Winslet's pose from the Titanic movie and lost her footing before plummeting from the ship. Smile mask syndrome is a psychological condition characterized by prolonged unnatural smiling. It can lead to painful strain of the facial muscles and result in an inability to stop smiling even when agitated or upset. In 1993, Missouri man James Scott damaged a levee on the Mississippi River simply to delay his wife from coming home so that he could party. Instead, the river ended up flooding over 14,000 acres, and the 23-year-old man was sentenced to life in prison for intentionally causing a catastrophe. Morbid Facts, Part 353. As a child star, Drew Barrymore was thrust into the dark side of Hollywood at a very young age. Her mother started bringing her to dance clubs when she was only 9 years old, letting her dance with older men and even use hard drugs. She understandably struggled to cope with this extremely early exposure to adult vices, since she was forced into a 6-month rehab program by the age of 13, and then spent the next 18 months in a mental hospital after attempting to take her own life. After a tiger escaped from a Georgia zoo and killed a man in 2015, a PSA was issued on what not to do if you ever encounter a tiger. Don't approach it, don't run away, and definitely don't urinate. In an attempt to escape a forceful arranged marriage with her cousin, 21-year-old Pakistani woman Asia Bibi poisoned a container of milk at a family party, hoping that only her fiancé would drink it. But instead, it was used by Bibi's mother-in-law to make a dessert drink for the entire family. It was then served to 27 members of BB's family, killing 17 of them. Comedian Red Fox was dying of a heart attack while on set. Nobody offered to help him. This was because everyone thought it was nothing more than the fake heart attack skit he was famous for. This super eerie Twin Towers ad from 1986 speaks for itself. Jeannie Wiley was locked in a room for 13 years by her father, who claimed he wanted to keep her safe from the outside world. He kept her tied in a straitjacket and would bark at her like a wild dog if she made any noise. When she was finally rescued, doctors said she had the cognitive abilities of a 1-year-old baby. This photo was taken by a paramedic in 2015 outside a California hospital. It shows an ER doctor who went outside to cry for a moment after losing a 19-year-old patient. Minutes later, he walked back inside with his head held high and continued on to his next patient. In 1899, brothers George and Willie Muse were kidnapped from their farm in Virginia by a freak hunter when they were just little boys. Born with albinism, they were forced to perform in circuses for the next 25 years under the names the Sheep-Headed Cannibals and Ambassadors from Mars. They were often ordered to partake in disturbing acts such as biting the heads off of snakes or consuming raw meat in front of crowds. The brothers essentially worked as modern-day slaves until their mother found them working for the Ringling Brothers and successfully sued for their release. In 2002, German actor Gunther Kaufmann confessed to falling on his accountant during a fight and accidentally suffocating the man to death with his 260-pound body. The actor was subsequently sentenced to 15 years in prison as a result of the incident. But 3 years later, it was revealed that Kaufman was innocent and had only confessed to protect his dying wife, who had actually murdered the accountant. After a night of drinking in 2010, Michigan man Jeffrey Duthette was sleeping in his bed when his dog Kiko suddenly bit off his toe. When he went to the hospital, it turned out the toe had a bad infection that likely would have spread and killed Jerry if left untreated. Thus, the dog had saved his owner's life. Morbid Facts, Part 412. The Double Rainbow guy Paul Vasquez was a constant uploader on YouTube and created thousands of videos. Even though he died of an illness in 2020 at the age of 57, he scheduled 15 years of uploads in advance before he died, leaving his channel still very active now, 4 years after his death. This is the tragic transformation of Florida man Robert Hardister, who was arrested 9 separate times for various infractions over an 8-year span. British doctor Thomas Kwan recently attempted to murder his mother's partner in one of the strangest ways possible. He disguised himself as a nurse and knocked on the man's door to offer him a free COVID jab. But instead of the vaccine, he put an unidentified poison in the syringe and injected it into his stepdad's arm. The next day, the man experienced serious pain and blistering in his shoulder, prompting him to go to the hospital and having part of his arm removed. He ended up surviving the bizarre attack, and Kwan was charged with attempted murder. Arnold Schwarzenegger had a brother named Maynard who was favored by their Nazi father but died in a drunk driving crash when he was 24. Arnold didn't attend his brother's funeral or his father's. In 1980, a Las Vegas hospital had to suspend workers for betting on when patients would die. One nurse was even accused of murdering a patient so she would win. The extremely venomous blue-ringed octopus has enough venom to kill 10 grown adults. Its deadly neurotoxin can result in patients being fully aware of their surroundings but unable to move. Because of the paralysis, you have no way of signaling for help or indicating distress. There's no anti-venom for the bite, but if you can get a ventilator to breathe for you for 16 hours, you will survive with no side effects. In 2012, the cruise ship Costa Concordia collided with a rock off the coast of Italy, resulting in 32 deaths. When asked why he abandoned the ship while his passengers were either dying or trying to escape, the captain's excuse was that he fell into a lifeboat. He received 16 years in prison for his role in the